when we look at the November now, okay, we're going to be looking at the grade 12 mathematical literacy paper 1 that was written in November 2024. This is where now we need to be, okay, where now we are honestly just, putting every single thing that we've learned from term 1 to term 3, actually, together. Okay, still literally the same as the prelim, because by the time you're writing the prelim, you're actually done with the syllabus. Okay, so we are just putting everything to practice, literally same things that you are studying. Okay, it's just that Kemanje, we are just showing off. Basically, that's what we are doing. Okay, so if you're able to do well in the prelim, you'll definitely do well in the final exam. Okay, even though this one is a 2024 one, but obviously the concepts are still the same. So like I also always say, right, you always need to ensure that you give yourself time when they give you that, 10 minutes or whatever minutes to go through your paper. Go through your paper. Do not take that time that they give you for granted. Okay, check there. How many annexures are you given? Okay, which question which annexure should I use for which question? Okay, so go through all of that very carefully. So here, I'm just going to focus on the rounding off. Do you see round off all final answers appropriately according to the given context, unless stated otherwise? So here, we're going to still use that same strategy that we've been using when we're looking at the prelim. We just write out the whole value. And if they don't tell us how many decimal places we should leave our answer in, you can just leave it in 2 decimal places. All right. And then, yeah, I think that's all that's important there. But please give yourself time to read through the instructions. Right. And then here now, okay, we're going to look at the first question of this paper. All right. I don't know if you'd like for me to give you some time to go through this. I've sent it to the group. Should I give you time to go through it and see? Question 1 also, literally, we are just analyzing this data. Okay, we are just getting warmed up. Nothing hectic. We are just reading, looking at the graph that is given to us here, and then that's it. Okay, honestly, nothing hard about it. Okay, maybe what we can talk about before we even start reading the statement that is given to us there is that we can just ask, you can be asked this question. Okay, what type of graph is this? Because I'm just asking you an additional question that's not given here. What type of a graph is this?
Isn't it a bar graph?
It is definitely a bar graph. Okay, but now what type of a bar graph?
Isn't it a double bar graph?
Double bar graph, well done. Okay, so you just need to ensure that when it comes to your bar graphs, you sometimes you get the vertically stacked, ne? Bar graphs, ne? Or you get, so the vertically stacked bar graphs, they look like this. I'm just giving you additional info, ne? So that you just have this information in your heads. The vertically stacked ones, they look like this, ne? Right? Or you can have a horizontally stacked. You can have a horizontally stacked. You see, it's stacked like this, bar graph. Okay. Or you can have a double bar graph like the one that we have here. Okay. So you just need to know the difference between those. Okay. But I feel like from there, you should be able to, based on what I said, I think you should remember those. Okay, right, cool. Now here, should I give you time or should I just go continue?
Ma'am, you can continue.
Okay. So they say school X and school Y conducted an election for new members to serve on the school governing body. The graph below shows the number of voters voting during different time slots at school X and school Y. All right, they give us now here at the top the number of voters per time slot at school X and school Y. Then on your vertical axis, right, they just give you the number of voters. Then on your horizontal axis, right, they give you school X and school Y. On the horizontal axis, sorry, they give you the time slots. Okay, right. Now, it's very important that here you see that they actually also gave us a key. Okay, so with this key, it's just helping us identify, the number of voters per school, right? So we're gonna just have to take note of that. Then they say use the information above to answer the questions that follow. Okay, so when you look at question 1.1.1, it says write down the number of voters at school Y from from 4 to 4:30. This is in the evening. Okay, so here we're going to be looking at from 4 to 4:30, and you want to identify the number of voters, people that voted, okay, at school Y. So you can see that school Y is the one with the squiggly brackets, okay, and then how many voters do we have there? We can see that we had 5 voters, okay. If you just analyze there, you can just see that this is 5 voters there. Question 1.1.2, identify the time slot when 30 people voted at school X. Okay, so here, question also guides us what we need to do. You want to obviously just look at the 30, draw your line there. Do you see? Okay, then we can already see that when we draw from the 30, okay, to the bar graph, okay, we can already see that we are landing on the 5:30 to 6 time slot. So if they say identify the time slots, okay, when 30 people voted at school X, we can already see that at school X, it's that darker shaded bar graph. So that time slot is from 5:30 to 6. Okay, that is the time slot. Okay, also they like this question, literally familiar to the question that we even given in the September 2025 prelim, where they were asking about the trend. Okay, what are you seeing? What is happening when you are looking at this graph that is given to us there? Okay, right. So they say choose the statement A to C below that best describes the trend of the voters at school Y. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on, sorry guys, we're going to be focusing on school Y. So I'm going to just highlight it because sometimes it gets a bit overwhelming. Just going to focus on school Y. Okay, that school that I've highlighted in yellow. And then I want to see what is actually happening. Because sometimes maybe they might not give you a multiple choice question, and you might be required to just describe the trait. So now let's see if we can just, without even looking, let's see if we can describe the trend. So we can see that the trend is it first decreases. Do you see? Okay. Then it increases. Then it decreases. Okay, remember, I'm just focusing on sorry guys. Okay. I'm just focusing on the bars that I have highlighted in yellow. So, if they're asking for what is the trend, that is basically where your answer needs to be roughly. Okay, so you can just say maybe from, in the afternoon as you go from, from 3 p.m. to 4:30, we can see that the number of voters, okay, that voted decreased. Then from 4:30 to 5:30, the number of voters increased. Then you see that's basically what they're asking for. If or should they ask you a question like that, just look at the general pattern. What is happening? So let's see if we will be able to identify the correct letter or the correct answer. Right. So as time went by, the voter numbers increased. Do you see? As time went by, the voter numbers increased. Do you see that the voter numbers actually decreased as time went by? So you can already see that A is definitely not the one. B, the voter numbers started high. Okay, they did start kind of high. Okay, then decreased and then picked up again. Okay, so they're saying they started high. Okay, maybe that could be the fine. Then decreased and then they went high. but they didn't go high. Because when you look at the last one here, they didn't go high. So we can already see that also this one is not the correct answer. Now let's look at C. The number of voters decreased. Do you see? They decreased. All right. Then increased. Do you see? Increased. And finally decreased. Remember? So we can definitely see that question 1.1.3 is definitely number C. All right. Question 1.1.4. Now, with this question, it says the probability of randomly selecting a voter from school X is 0.56 during the 5:30 to 6 time slot. All right. Okay. They're just giving us that statement there. Okay. All right. So we are focusing. We're not going to go straight into calculating probability. Okay, just reading the statement. Then they say, write 0.56 as a simplified fraction. Okay, so with this question, okay, for question 1.1.4, okay, please take note of the following, right? If they basically give you a number that is written in decimal form, right? It could be 0.37, okay, for example. And then they say, now, can you please represent this number in simplified fractional form, right? Now, you need to remember, okay, because obviously they want the solution. So don't just go into your calculator and just type it the way that it is. Okay, let me actually give you a nice one. Let me give you another one where it actually simplifies. Just give me 2 seconds. Let me think of an example. Yeah, okay. Let me say, they say, right, 0.5, or let me do 6.4. Yeah, let's do 6.4. That's a nice one. 0.64. Okay, and then they say, please write this in fractional form. What you need to do here, you first wanna, don't just go straight into the calculator and get your final answer, because yes, if you go to your calculator and you press 0.64, you are going to get 16/25. You're just gonna get 1 mark, right? This question is out of 2 marks, right? So if you want to get your full 2 marks, you want to show how we got to 16 divided by 25. So what we're going to do here, remember, if you've got 3 values, sorry guys, 3 digits after the comma, 2 values after the comma, it basically means that it's going to be this number, 64, divided by 100. Okay, so it's going to be a 1 with 2 zeros. Even if I gave you this, even if I gave you 0.643, okay, to write this in a simplified or fractional form, okay, what you're going to do, you're going to take this number, that's our numerator, 643, divided by the denominator will be 1,000, okay, because we've got 3 digits after the comma, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that you have to first, okay, write it, okay, show this first step, okay? And even though, yes, they won't want you to show, how you dividing by the highest common factor, then from here, you can just let your calculator do it for you. Then if you press 64 over 100, okay, you'll get that your answer is 16/25. Okay, they've basically divided both the 64 and the 100 by the highest common factor. Okay, so you don't have to really stress much about that of, having to find out what is the highest common factor, then divide by that. No, because it's going to take too long and it's a question out of 2 marks. They just want this. They want to see that you understand that it's going to be 64 over 100, and then they just want the final answer. Okay, that shows, in inverted commas, that you've basically divided by the highest common factor, divided both the numerator and the denominator by the highest common factor. All right, so that's basically what they want. So now if you look at this question, they have actually given us 0.56. Sorry guys, something is irritating my throat. 0.56. Okay, we want to write this as a simplified fraction. So this is basically going to be, remember, 56 divided by 100. They want to see that step. Okay, and then from there, you can simply put it into your calculator. 56 divided by 100 is equal to 14 divided by 25. Okay, you'll get your full mark for that and another mark for that. Okay, that's just what they want. Okay, now let's look at question 1.1.5. Okay, are we fine with these ones so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Tiara.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now let's look at question 1.1.5. It says, calculate the total number of voters at both schools who voted during the 5 to 5 time slot. All right, so here, okay, we're just going to be focusing on the 5 to 5 time slot. We are here, okay. Then we want to first determine what is the total number of voters. So you can actually see here, when you now, for both schools, now, so we're going to be looking at both these bars, okay? Okay, so if you see here, from there to there, this is just 25. From there to there, it's 30. So now we're going to be approximating, basically, because you can see that, it's there. Do you see? The number of voters is actually the same for both. So you can see that when you look at this properly, you can see that it's actually 26. Okay, so there's 26 voters that voted at 5 to 5 in school X, 26 voters that voted from 5 to 5 at school Y. All right, so to get the total number of voters there, okay, we'll just say total voters is equal to 26 plus 26. Okay, and that will basically give us 52 voters. Okay, and we're done with question 1.1. Now let's look at question 1.2. All right, question 1.2, also still, we are just analyzing the data that is given to us. Okay, right, so it's just analyzing data. Okay, they will definitely, most times, all the time, okay, give you a table to analyze, a graph to analyze, okay? Just need to give yourself time to analyze the table and see what is happening there, right? So they're saying the newly elected SGB plan to have lunch with the staff. Table 1 below shows the average comparative food prices for May 2022 and May 2023, okay? Right? So they're basically showing us what the price, for example, was for 410 grams of beans in May 2022 and in May 2023. Okay, then they say table 1 obviously shows the comparative food prices for some lunch items. Then they give us the food prices on our first column. Then they gave us what the price is in rands. Okay, you need to not always just think along these lines. When they give you items, food items, okay, they can either give you, a price, okay, for like items in bulk, right? Okay, or items per kilograms, okay? Or in this case, they've just given us that if you've got 410 grams of beans, that's the price. If you've got 1.5 dozen eggs, okay, that is the price. Okay, so here we can already now start to think along the lines of, okay, if they're giving us now, because with eggs, you've got 1.5 dozen eggs. Okay, we can actually think along the lines of they'll probably most probably ask us a question where we have to maybe determine what would be the price for one egg, right? Okay, or if they give you the chicken portions per 2 kg, maybe they'll ask us what will be the price per kg, right? So then you know that in that case, you need to divide by whatever the answer is, or whatever the value is there, you have to divide by 2 in the context of the 2 kg. In the context of the 1.5 dozen, eggs, you'd have to first determine if I'm talking about 1,5 dozen eggs, how many eggs am I actually talking about? Okay, so your brain needs to always be along those lines. When they give you, items, you can items of clothing, food items, and things like that, questions will probably most definitely lead there. Right, and then they gave you the percentage change. Right, so the year-on-year percentage is 20.2. The month-on-month percentage change was 0.5. So this is basically how the percentages changed year-on-year and month-on-month. Right, you can already see that we've got an unknown there. So now remember what I always said, when it comes to values that are omitted, values that are left out in a table, you just need to start to look at a pattern. Okay, what did they do here? Most of the time, they'll give you one row or one column. Then from that one column, you'll definitely be able to figure out what's happening in the other column as well. All right. Here, obviously, here they've shaded that region. So we're not going to be calculating these, totals there. We don't have to do that. Okay. So, right, you always just need to be thinking along those lines. So they say use table 1 above to answer the questions that follow. Question 1.2.1 says identify the food items that showed a decrease in both the month-on-month and year-on-year percentage change. All right. So with this question, honestly speaking, you could have looked at this question in two ways. Okay. Yes, it's talking about the month on month and year on year, and you want to look at the food prices where there was a decrease, okay, in both, right? So you can just look for, right, if you're focusing on the month on month, because I mean, it's saying year on year and month on month, okay? So you want to look for where there's a negative for both, all right? So here we can see that for the sunflower oil, there's a negative for both. And for the oranges, there's a negative for both. But if maybe, for example, that question kind of didn't make sense, right? You'd also be like, if they're saying you want to determine, or identify the food items where there was a decrease, right? In both the month and month. You could also just see that here, if you also just look at the price in rands, okay, you'd see that with the beans, it increased. With the instant coffee, it increased. With the eggs, it increased. With the sunflower, you see it moved from 40,682 to 35, yeah, so they can already see that there was a decrease there. With the oranges, from 22 to 20, it is a decrease there, right? From the chicken, okay, it is an increase there, so we don't count that. The chicken portions, it was also an increase. So that is why when you calculate the percentage change, okay, when you take the new minus the old, we are getting the negative values that we got there, okay, right? So yeah, just to explain what's happening there, right? So we can definitely see that the items that showed a decrease in both the month on month as well as on the year on year percentage change, those items were definitely the sunflower oil and the oranges per kg. Okay, all right, let's look at question 1.2.2. They're asking us here to calculate the missing value A, right? So how would we get that missing value A there? How would we get that missing value A?
The A.
Mm.
Don't you just add all the values?
Yes, right? So to get the missing value A, all that we need to do is we just need to add all those values. So please, you always need to show your solutions, okay? Don't just jump into just calculating them on your calculator and not showing those solutions. Please, you need to now, when you're doing your solutions, okay, just write there 12, 60 plus this, plus this, plus that, plus that, plus that, plus that is equal to A. Okay, so I'm not going to write all of that, but please be aware that you need to please show all of or show how you got to your answer. Then you'll see that you'll get the answer of 298,41. Okay, that is our missing value A. Right, now question, question 1.2.3, it says, calculate the price of a dozen eggs. Do you see? In or during May 2022. All right. Okay, now here, what we need to do here is that we want to be focusing on May 2022. So we're actually on this column, okay, and we are focusing on the eggs, right? So this is basically what I was telling Ogoti. Sometimes I can give you information about maybe, items in bulk, and you need to maybe be able to, calculate what would be the unit price of, that item for you to be able to calculate answers or do the solutions to the questions that are asked here. All right, so I'm going to take you through this. If they say they want you to calculate the price of a dozen eggs, okay, what do we first need to do in this question, right? Here, we are actually given what the price is for not a dozen, but for 1,5 eggs. So here we already know that if you've got, okay, this is question 1.2.3. Okay, they already told us that 1,5, okay, dozen tray, I'm going to say dozen eggs, okay, that is equal to, or the price is going to be, or is 52 Rand and 97 cents. Okay, so this is the price for 1.5 dozen eggs, right? So now, for us to now get to a point where we are able to figure out, first, what is the price for a dozen? We first need to get what is the price for one egg. After we find out what will be the price for one egg, whatever that price for one egg is, then we'll just multiply it by 12, because a dozen is 12, right? So then we're going to create now this equation. Remember, this one is the one that's already given to us there. But now we need to create, obviously, an equation or a statement from what we already know when it comes to a dozen. So we know that 1 dozen is equal to 12 eggs, okay? So now I want to basically determine that if I've got 1,5 dozen eggs, how many eggs do I have? That's basically what I'm trying to figure out. So then all that I need to do now, okay, I'm just going to take this 1,5 dozen because I want to determine how many eggs is this actually. How many eggs do I have in this tray? I'm just going to take 1,5 dozen divided by, okay, remember, I'm just using now this equation, this statement that I've created for myself, divided by what I have, 1 dozen, multiplied by, already divided by this, I want to multiply by what I want, because I want eggs. I want to determine how many eggs do I actually have. All right, so if I take 1,5 and I multiply by 12, this is going to tell us it's just 18 eggs, right? So what this basically tells us now, right, is that if I've got, okay, if I've got 1,5 dozen eggs, which cost 52 Rand and 97 cents, that's the same as saying I've got 18 eggs. And that cost 52 Rand and 97 cents. See, so now once I've now simplified this, okay, into a statement that is just relating eggs and the cost of those eggs, right? Then now I can just determine, Uguti, how much is the price of one egg, okay? So now to get the price of one egg, I'm going to divide by 18. What you do on the left, you do on the right. Divide by 18. Therefore, one egg is going to be equal to 52,97 divided by 18, this is going to be equal to 2 rand. I'm going to keep everything the way that it is, comma, 942. Then, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Okay, now I know, Uguti, what is the price for one egg in 2022? But remember, they didn't say what is the price of one egg. They wanted you to calculate what is the price of a dozen eggs. Okay, so from here, what you need to do, you can just take this two comma. Okay, I don't actually have to rewrite it. You can just take this amount for one egg and you just multiply by 12 because we already know that a dozen is 12 eggs. All right, then from there, if you multiply by 12, you'll see that your answer is going to be 35 rand, comma 31, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, which is approximately 35, comma 31. Okay, that is basically the price for a dozen eggs. I mean, yeah, for a dozen eggs. Okay, does this make sense?
Yes.
Okay, last question here. Question 1.2.4. Write down the unit ratio. Okay, so remember we've spoken about, ratios and the final form, okay, or how they'd want your answer to be presented. They can say in unit form, unit ratio. They can say as a whole number, okay? But basically what they mean by unit ratio is that whatever the ratio is, it needs to be in the form of 1 is to something, right? And this something, okay, it should be in decimal form, right? So remember, when it comes to your ratio questions, they tell you exactly what you need to do. Okay, they say write down the ratio or the unit ratio in the form of 1 is to something for the price of oranges. So you want, what is the price of the oranges, okay, in 2022 to the price of the oranges in May 2023. All right, so we're just going to go up. Then we see, we're going to be focusing on here, 2022, the price of the oranges was 22 rand and 07 cents. 22 rand 07 cents. 2 means your colon. 20 rand and 10 cents for 2023, right? That's where we start. Then remember they said they needed to be in the form of 1 is to something. So that means that here we want to change this to be 1. Okay, if you want to change this to be 1, we're going to divide, okay, by 22 rand and 7 cents. What you do on the left, you do on the right. Divide by 22 rand and 7 cents. Then you see that the rands cancel. You left with 1. That and that also cancels. Okay, gives you 1 is 2. Then 20, 10 divided by 22,07. That gives us, do you know, also the rands are canceling there. Please take note. So it's going to be 0, 9 point, okay, 9107 385591. That is the same as saying 1 is 2. So this is the correct answer. Even if you leave it there, that's still absolutely fine. Okay, but remember, I said you can just also take this further, just round it off to 2 decimal places, okay, which is 0,91. Okay, but you can also just leave it there. That's still absolutely fine. Any questions here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, and then we're done with question 1.2. Now, with question 1.3, okay, we are dealing with definitions, like I mentioned, okay, on all topics that include finance, data handling. Nothing else. Most of the time, it's going to be along these lines. If they do give you some terminology or definitions. Now, here we are required, we are told that table 2 below gives definitions of terminology, okay, that is used in mathematical literacy. Now, letter A is saying, well, they give you the letter, then they give the definitions. So you need to be able to determine or match the definition to the term, okay, or the concept. It says an increase in the price of a basket of goods or services over time that is representative of the economy as a whole. Okay, remember, we looked at this, okay, that now if there's an increase in the price of goods or services over time, that is what's going to be just dealing with this style one by one. This is inflation. Then B is the sum of all the values divided by the total number of values. We definitely know that this is the mean. Number C, the income received from the item sold and the cost price of the item is the same. Okay, so when the income, okay, is equal to the expenses, okay, that is basically what the break-even point. Number D, value or values appearing most often in a data set. We already know that that is the mode. The difference between the highest and the lowest value in the data set, we already know that's the range. If an amount paid regularly at a particular rate for the use of an amount paid regularly at a particular rate for the use or the loan of money. I thought of that maybe as I thought maybe they maybe could be talking about monthly installments because it's an amount paid regularly at a particular rate or for the use or the loan of money. Interest. Yeah, I think it's interest. I think that's interest. Okay, I think there's interest. I think we can't say monthly installments because they didn't say it's paid monthly. Okay, so I'm thinking interest. Okay, G, these are amounts that must be paid every month and which stay the same, like your rent, your school fees, and your transport costs. Okay, so these types of expenses, they are fixed. Rent is fixed. So it's called your fixed expenses. Rent is fixed. Your school fees is fixed. Transport costs are fixed. If your mother is paying 850 towards transport every single month, they're gonna pay 850 towards transport. It's fixed, it doesn't change. Number H, the middle value in an ordered data set. We already know that that is the median. Number I, expenses that change over time or from 1 week or month to the next. Okay, they gave us an example of telephone, electricity costs. We already know that these are variable expenses. Variable expenses, okay, are expenses that are not fixed, they change, okay, every single month or weekly or, okay, so these are expenses that change. Like for example, electricity costs. To this month, you could buy electricity to the value of 300, né? But maybe in months like your in June, okay, right, where it's a bit more colder, maybe your electricity bill will go up. Maybe you'll be paying more than 900. So it's not fixed. Okay, it's not just the one set amount. It depends on usage. Okay, even with telephone, your telephone bill 1 month can be, 200 if it's, prepaid. And then the next month you'll be paying 300. It depends on, how often you called people. Right. And then, yeah. Last one, the point where the income exceeds the expenses. Yeah, I feel like with these ones, it was a bit vague, because I was thinking to myself, a point where the income exceeds the expenses, because we already know that when the income is equal to your expenses, that's your break-even point. But where the income exceeds the expenses, I was thinking of, because when the minute your income exceeds your expenses, I'm thinking maybe you'll be making a profit. Okay. Yeah, that's the first word that came to mind. I don't know. Does anyone have a different suggestion here? I was thinking of profit. Because the minute your income exceeds your expenses, then you make a profit. But if your income is lower than your expenses, then you're making a loss. All right, so I don't know, because I was just thinking of those graphs that you were drawing. And if your income is more, then that's when you start to make a profit. Also, even with when you look at your equation, right? You make a profit when your income is more than your expenses. Okay, so the first word that came to mind for me here is profit. Okay, right. Okay, so now from here, okay, please, this is just as trying to figure out, trying to, match the correct concept, the correct term to the definition that is given to us here. Okay, we were not supposed to do this. I just did this so that we are able to just, think along those lines as we go through the questions that are given to us here. Now they say use table 2 above and match the definitions with the terminology below, and then write only the letter A to J next to the question number. So what is break-even point? Do you see? We already see that we had a point where we spoke about the break-even point, right? A break-even point is when the income received is equal to the expenses, all right? We said that is C. Inflation, what is inflation, right? We already looked at in A. Inflation is the increase in the price of a basket of goods or services over time that is representative of the country as a whole. So we can see that 1.3.2 is A. Number 1.3.3, what are variable expenses? We already spoke about this in I, that your variable expenses these are, expenses that change over time. Okay? These are expenses that are not fixed, right? So we said that one is definitely I. Last one, what is the mean? We also looked at this in B, okay, where we said that the mean is sum of all the values divided by total number of values. So this is B, right? And then those are all our answers for these questions. Okay, and then our last one for today, we're just going to be looking at your electricity tariffs. So
that is it, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next upload, Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. Bye, guys.